Hi, I'm Justin, and welcome to the Landis Look, where we take an inside look at the world of real estate. And I'm here with Amber York for part 2 of our new construction series. And if you missed last week, you definitely need to go back to and watch it if you're considering, should I consider new construction? Amber, one of the new construction specialists on our team and a 7-time purchaser of new construction personally, which is pretty awesome, shared her perspective on why she's done it. And one of the reasons to do it is, as you can see here, we're in a new construction house and it's gorgeous, which is definitely an advantage of new construction. So Amber, let's start today with, if someone is considering, or they're thinking, hey, that might be great for me, how do they start to navigate what community would be right for them?
Yeah, so what I find, well, for myself, the number one thing for me when I was looking with new construction was schools. Schools for my daughter.
Yep.
And community. So what was in the community, because, work, life, play balance was important to me. So what was a community that would offer, a lot of activities within the community?
Yep.
So I tend to like larger communities because I like to have a lot of neighbors. There's usually a lot of activities involved.
What else do you get in a larger community compared to, like, hey, you're looking at like a little 15 house subdivision versus a 150 house subdivision?
Yeah, so a lot of times you'll get swim and tennis, right? Which is huge for folks with families and kids. And so, the particular community I live in now, we have swim and tennis as well as we have greenway trails. So we can actually walk through the woods and have, that. There's dog play areas. There's like dog park areas.
Are those amenities expensive, or because there's enough houses, it's really gets divided out?
They're really not. I mean, on average, you'll pay anywhere from $150 to $200 a month, which if you think about, maintenance and upkeep, if you had your own pool, or if you are a member of like a Lifetime Fitness or something like that, you're usually going to pay those in monthly fees anyway.
Yeah. So in a bigger community, you have those additional amenities, which do cost something, but if you're going to use them, is a great value. And so that's obviously important for looking at your community. What about the builder? So I get a question about that a lot of times. What do you know about this builder? Is this a good builder? How do you go about evaluating the actual builder in the community?
Yeah, so I think online reviews are key. I personally, before I really became knowledgeable of the build process, I would use online reviews. So I typically I try to look at the experience over the past year, because anything before that kind of to me doesn't really tell the picture of the story.
Yeah,
so
because they probably had a different project manager at that point, a different community,
different builders. A lot of
Yep.
bigger builders have gone through mergers.
That's
so
true.
You've got big builders merging 2 and 3 at a time. So to me, the most recent reviews are the most important ones, because those are experiences that are happening right now. So I typically do that. I also sometimes go on Glassdoor. I'm a former recruiter, so I go on Glassdoor and actually look at employee experiences and what are employees saying about the builders.
Those are some great tips. I would not have thought of that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's some great insight. All right, so now we're feeling good about the community. We're feeling the amenities, the size. We're feeling good about the builder. So you go in. Can you negotiate new construction? What's the deal with that? I mean, is what you see what you get? Is there any room for negotiation?
So if you're building from the ground up, there is pretty much no negotiation as far as what you're going to put into the home.
Okay.
Because you're picking everything. It's at the builder cost. The builder can't negotiate it, therefore you can't negotiate it. Where your negotiation comes in on ground up construction is in your design incentives. So a lot of times you are given a design allowance when you go in and sign a new construction contract. So if you kind of know the community and you know what's sold in there, a lot of times you can negotiate additional money towards that. And that's nice because it's basically free money for you. So it doesn't cost the builder much. I mean, yes, they're giving you some additional upgrades, but honestly, in the big scheme of things, they would much rather give that away than take off the price of the home or give you closing costs or other things of that.
And why is that? Why is it easier to get, and not that it's easy, but easier to get incentives than it is to get a price reduction or something like that?
Well, at the end of the day, everything they do is wholesale, right? So they're buying lights in bulk, they're buying, a lot of the cabinets in bulk. So it's easier for them to kind of write off some of that versus, trying to. The other thing is they want to keep the integrity of their community.
Definitely. They want the sales price, because that sales price, every house
they sell. If you're discounting one way low and your others are high, You're not going to get additional buyers in there.
Yep.
You're going to make the buyers that are already in there upset. So
Yes.
you're trying to create a happy medium for everybody.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things that, I feel like representation can really help with. And that's another question I get is, hey, do I need representation? Should I just go into the community by myself? And if I do go in by myself, am I getting a better deal? Is the agent on site making more money or less money? I mean, I was in real estate a long time before I knew the answers to these questions because I think it is kind of confusing. Give us like the overview of the representation side of the real estate transaction and new construction.
Yeah, so the number one question of, do I get a discount? No, you don't. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to sell the house for what they want to sell the house for. Now, can you negotiate more if it's done and move-in ready? Absolutely. A lot of times you can get some discounts, but unless you've really done your research and you understand the sales in the community, it's hard to know what that right number is.
Yeah.
You also, just like with any sale, a resale or otherwise, it's good to have representation.
Yep.
It does not benefit the builder in any way to have you not represented. If anything, it's a disadvantage to you as the buyer because you don't have anyone fighting for you.
Yep.
At the end of the day,
because
the builder's agent works for the builder. They are 100% committed to that process for the builder. So just like you would be represented in a resale, you want to have somebody on your side because, as much as builders try to meet timelines, as much as they try to build the house you want them to build, things happen and problems come up along the way. And it is very stressful. As a buyer going through that process, an agent is there to take that stress off of you. Their sole focus is make sure you get the house you want and the timeline that you wanted it and that it looks like you wanted it to look.
Well, yeah, I mean, and even just from knowing some of your personal experiences, you had challenges with construction and timelines and stuff that I'm pretty confident if you were not an agent and ultra experienced at this, could have turned out much less favorable for you. If someone was buying their first new construction house by themselves, those they were hard for you to navigate. They would have been nearly impossible for someone.
Well, so part of the reason I became an agent was
Yeah.
because I actually went through a horrible new build process. Yeah. My agent, 3 months into the process, moved away, and I basically was representing myself. Yeah. And it was hard, and I didn't feel like the builder took me seriously because I wasn't an agent and he didn't think I knew what I was talking about. So it's very different when you're actually an agent and you understand the contracts, you understand how the guidelines, how things should be built. And unfortunately, as just a general consumer, there is so much I didn't know before that I know now.
Yeah. And so, to move on, before we move on to the representation, one other thing that surprised me was as builders reps come to our sales meetings and come to different agent things, I was always surprised how they would say, we want you guys to represent the buyers. It's easier for us. They don't make any more money when the buyers are not represented. And so I was always surprised by that, at first until I understood how it worked. Moving on to the actual timeline of doing it, what would you say, you're in there, you're doing the house, what's one of the biggest tips to helping people stick on the timeline? Because am I right, that's one of the biggest challenges?
It is the biggest challenge. And again, there are some things that are out of the builder's control.
Sure.
They can't, weather is the number one thing. Two is, at the end of the day, they're dealing with contractors and they're dealing with vendors. And they are at the mercy of them to get them in here. It is not the builder themselves building the home. It is all the contractors that they have contracted in. So they run into people not showing up, people being late, and challenges as much as anybody else. The number one tip I can give to someone for a build process is check the home often. Don't be scared to go by the home at every phase of the process. A lot of times builders will tell you, don't worry about it, don't worry about coming by. We've got a pre-drywall meeting, we've got a final walkthrough. In between that, don't worry. That's the no, absolutely not. Because our last build that we did, we were here every step of the way and we found multiple problems because again, people are human and they're looking at a layout and they're looking at a work order, and as much as you try to make those two marry up, mistakes happen.
And it's way easier to make a correction right when something happens than the next 8 things in the project have been done before you notice it.
Absolutely. It's never too early to raise your hand and say there's a problem. And you know what? You may think it's a problem. It's good to go ahead and ask, because the builder may say it's not a problem and it's on my punch list and it's on the horizon. But, you know, if you don't ask, you don't know. And the last thing you want to do is come to your final walkthrough and have something look completely different than what you thought it was going to look.
Any final takeaways or tips or tricks to share with people before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just, you know, understanding the build process. So, you know, one of the key things that I learned in some of my, especially my more recent builds, is there's a timeline and then there's reality. So timeline is, ideally they will quote you and say 6 to 8 months. Reality is, with most builders, they have up to 2 years to build your home. Yep. So it's very important that you understand that. And again, that's why, you know, having just a consultant or somebody working alongside you that can help you through that process, you know, because they have that in their contracts, you cannot force them to build any sooner. And if you walk away from your money, you're walking away from your money. They do not have to refund it for anything.
And so that's a key point on the contract. The reason they have that timeline is because there's a contract that says they do. And most builders have their own contracts.
Right. It's not a typical contract.
Yeah, it's not your typical contract, which definitely is a big part of understanding the process, knowing your rights, knowing their rights, knowing how it's going to work. And like you said, almost always there is a good amount of non-refundable money on the line, and you have to be comfortable, or not have to, you should be comfortable and know what you're signing before you write that.
Yeah, I mean, if you've gone through a resale process, you know, the offer was probably 4 pages.
Yep.
A typical builder contract is between 30 and 50 pages. And then usually your earnest money, your down payment on a resale, is around 1 to 2% of what you're purchasing the home for. With builders, it can be anywhere from $15,000 all the way up to $50,000 just to do the earnest money. And then when you go to the design center, it's an additional. If you're building from the ground up, you go into the design center, you select all the items you want in the home. Typically, you pay anywhere from 20 to 30% additional money to secure those, because if for any reason you did walk away during the build process, they're stuck with what you chose from the home, and what worked for you may not work for somebody else. So that's why they get that extra money up.
Yeah, the bright red $20 per square foot tile may be hard to resell on the secondary. Yeah, it might be hard to resell that if you walk away. So, I mean, Amber, I really appreciate this. Is great insight. I mean, you know, even myself, who have helped people buy a lot of new construction houses, learned a lot in these conversations. I really appreciate that. If you have more questions and you have a specific situation, drop us a message here on this video, or send us a message. You can email myself at Justin Landis Group, or Amber at York at Justin Landis Group. We're happy to answer your specific questions on this, and would be happy to help you navigate through the process as well if it's one that you're considering. So thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week, and we'll see you then.